This morning on Wake Up NonStop, local change of plea. The hearings coming up for people involved in the Spokane ICE protest, including a former city council president. We've got the schedule of those appearances straight ahead.
And Waymo problems, the driverless car crossing through a crime scene. How the robo-taxi company is defending against this, and questions about safety coming up.
And I'm tracking some patchy freezing fog for the morning commute before we see a cloudy day ahead and our next system quickly on the move.
Also this morning, an elegant tradition. We're showing off the lineup of trees from Christmas tree elegance. We've got a live report from inside the historic Davenport Hotel coming up.
And from snow to snowboards, ski resorts across the inland Northwest are opening up this week when you can hit the slopes as we shred into a Wednesday on Wake Up NonStop Local.
Wake up, you gotta rise to the sun, and here it comes, it's time to make the best of what you got to give. It's all about rising, and I wanna be there.
Okay, look at these pictures. This is gorgeous. We start with pictures of the snow that has fallen this week over the inland Northwest. These pics were taken by our producer, Luke Sorensen, showing some of the popular places across Spokane blanketed in snow. Thanks for joining us. I'm Kalai Chalk.
I'm Sam Adams here with Jenny Power. Jenny, good reminder why we love this time of year. Everything's just a little more beautiful when the snow's on the ground.
Oh my gosh, especially if you're trying to lean into the holiday spirit. This sets the tone, you guys. But what I am tracking this morning are still some slick conditions. So although it's gorgeous and we always love to see your photos, send them our way. The one thing you need to know is that we've got a little bit of patchy freezing fog for the morning commute. So this is a couple of live looks for you out along I-90, mostly in the West Plains is where we're seeing some of this fog and reduced visibility. Current conditions here, we're seeing visibility through parts of Spokane at about a mile, but closer to a half-mile south through the Latah Valley, as well as through pockets of northern Oregon. Our start time temperatures to go along with it here in the upper 20s to low 30s, so just know that our well-traveled roads are actually in fairly decent shape. It's going to be some of those residential and side roads that are a little bit tricky here this morning, just because of some leftover snow and ice here that we are dealing with from the system that moved through yesterday. But because of the freezing temperatures mixed with the fog, we actually do have some freezing fog advisories in place until 10 a.m., primarily impacting through the lower Columbia Basin, but just enough to know that areas through the areas shaded in green are going to be slick. Now, I am tracking here another wintry system that's going to quickly move in. I'm timing that one out, though, coming up in 10 minutes. Sam, Kalai.
All right, Jenny, we'll see you then. Thank you. So a developing story right now. Change of plea hearings are coming up for 4 protesters, including former Spokane City Council President Ben Stuckert for their roles in that June 11th ICE protest. A hearing for Mickey Hatfield has now been set for 10 o'clock this morning, and then hearings for Stuckert as well as 3 others are scheduled for next week.
At least 9 people were arrested and charges with conspiracy to impede or injure officers and for assaulting a federal officer during an ICE arrest. Spokane Fire Department is urging parents to learn about its youth fire setting prevention program after that deadly house fire last week, where firefighters say an 11-year-old boy died in the fire in the basement of his house in northwest Spokane. Investigators believe he was playing with combustibles and accidentally started the fire.
The department is also recommending talking to your children about fire safety and keeping smoke detectors working. They also do offer a free program to help families prevent future fires.
What we're ultimately trying to do is making sure that we're getting to a safer place before we stop working with the family or make a warm connection to a service provider in the community.
Families in Spokane just need to call the fire department to set this up.
And if you do not live in Spokane, you can check with your local fire station. They'll likely have a similar program. In continuing coverage now, the Moses Lake School District is closed again today for the 3rd day of the teachers' strike there. Teachers Union and the Moses Lake School District have not been able to come to a contract agreement.
The union says they're on strike right now over funding decisions as well as cuts to programs. Negotiations are ongoing. The district is reviewing a new counterproposal sent by the association just yesterday afternoon. We will continue to follow this story on air and online on nonstoplocal.com.
Well, we're more than a month away from Washington State's 2026 legislative session, but lawmakers are already working on a new tax proposal. It's called the Well Washington Fund, which would be a new tax on larger employers.
Now, a similar proposal was introduced in this year's legislative session. It's being sponsored by state Democrats who say it would impose a 5% tax on payroll expenses for companies with more than 50 employees making over $125,000 yearly. Representative Sean Scott of Seattle saying it would generate some $2.2 billion a year if signed into law.
This is a new dedicated account. It will be guided by subject matter experts who will study the impact of federal austerity budgeting, and they will advise the state legislature on key investments that it must make to keep Washington healthy, whole, and well in the face of federal divestment by Washington, D.C.
This was first introduced in the Senate last March, but didn't make it out of committee.
A group of business executives called Washington Roundtable says Washingtonians already saw the largest tax increase in state history and adds that more taxes on employers could be passed on to everyone else.
How does this fit with other proposals that we might hear from this legislative session? So it feels like there's still a lot of work to do to understand what this proposal would do, both from an impacts perspective of who the tax affects and from an impacts perspective of what the tax would fund.
For the sake of transparency, Betsy Coles is a board member for Washington Roundtable, and NonStop Local KHQ is owned by the Coles Company. The 2026 legislative session starts January 12th. To a big story out of Minnesota now. The former police officer convicted of murder in the death of George Floyd is seeking a new trial. In 2021, Derek Chauvin was found guilty of state and federal charges related to Floyd's death and sentenced to 22.5 years in prison.
Chauvin's attorney filed court documents. They're asking that 3 criminal convictions now be vacated and a new trial be ordered. They're also accusing prosecutors of misconduct and arguing that false testimony from expert witnesses deprived Chauvin of a fair trial. The man accused of shooting 2 National Guard members, one fatally, in Washington, D.C., is now pleading not guilty.
Ramanula Lochinwah was shot in the incident and appeared from his hospital bed in that virtual court appearance. He was charged with several crimes, including premeditated murder and assault with intent to kill.
We are pursuing everything. There is nothing off the table right now. This is an individual about whom we don't know a lot, but we will, trust me, before it's over.
There will now be a preliminary hearing January 14th. As for the victims, 20-year-old Army Specialist Sarah Beckstrom, she died of her injuries Thanksgiving Day.
The other victim, 24-year-old Air Force Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolf, is said to be improving in condition. And to a developing story right now, the Kremlin denying that Russian President Vladimir Putin rejected all of the Ukraine peace plan being backed by the United States. Yesterday's negotiations stalling, but a Kremlin spokesperson now says it wouldn't be right to say everything was rejected.
He went on to say something was accepted and something was marked as unacceptable, which is normal, they say, for negotiations. This one's contrary, though, to what another top Kremlin aide told reporters after nearly 5 hours of talks between the U.S. delegation and Putin, saying there still has not been a compromise. This just in, the family of a Colombian fisherman killed in a U.S. military boat strike has filed a formal complaint with the Inter-American Commission of Human Rights. It says that Alejandro Carranza died in the Caribbean on September 15th after the U.S. ordered a strike on his boat.
President Trump says that he ordered this strike and attack, saying that the boat was carrying drugs from Venezuela. Meantime, the president of Colombia is accusing the United States of murder and is demanding an explanation. The commission can investigate, but any ruling would not be legally binding. Caught on camera, a Waymo robo-taxi driving right into an active crime scene. This happened in downtown Los Angeles.
The driverless car had passengers inside when it drove right past a vehicle with a suspect inside and past police cars with their lights on. Police pulled their weapons moments after the Waymo passed. Waymo says that this car turned into an unblocked area where other cars were already driving.
Federal government already launching an investigation into Waymo's repeatedly passing stopped school buses with their lights flashing, as well as other incidents. Talking your money right now, low affordability and high interest rates changing the way many young Americans are investing their money these days. They're switching from home ownership to the stock market.
New data from the J.P. Morgan Chase Institute shows more than 1/3 of 25-year-olds now have investment accounts. Now, the National Association of Realtors says the typical age of first-time home buyers has climbed to an all-time high now of 40 years old.
Young investors that they can continue to buy the dip. And we've seen that playing out with a 6-fold increase in the number of young people who are investing in stocks.
Researchers say the shift started in 2022 when rising home prices made buying less affordable.
Ski and snowboard season just around the corner here in the inland Northwest. Silver Mountain set to open this Friday at 8:15 a.m. They say they got just enough snow to get 2 chairlifts up and running this weekend.
Their most recent posts say that tickets are $59 for adults, $45 for kids. Mount Spokane hopes to be open by next Saturday. Meanwhile, Schweitzer is open today, and NonStop local John Webb will be up there later today. Well, the holiday season is in full swing, and for Spokane, Christmas tree elegance at the historic Davenport is a staple this time of year.
All right, so it's running from now until December 14th. NonStop Locals Caitlin Smock live this morning with what to expect for the event's 43rd year.
Yeah, well, there are so many trees. There are 9 trees here in the Davenport, in the historic Davenport, and several more downtown in the mall. But I felt that it was fitting to end here on a Spokane classic tree for the event. So I'm talking to Laura Lee Bauer with the Spokane Symphonies Association for Trees. So talk to me, for the Tree of Elegance, talk to me a little bit about this tree here.
Well, this is a great tradition because it's reflective of what a great place Spokane is to live. It's called Spotlight on Spokane, and so it features tickets to all kinds of entertainment venues, including Spokane Indian games, to civic theater performances, of course to the symphony itself. There's opportunities with West Coast entertainment tickets, just all kinds of things that the whole family can take advantage of. So it has been a tree around theme-wise for multiple years, and we continue to see that it's a great showcase for what a wonderful place this is.
Absolutely. And you were telling me that you guys sell a lot of raffle tickets for this event. So how many did you sell last year?
Well, we sold over 500,000 tickets last year. So that's a pretty big number of tickets, that $1 a piece, that people come in and take a chance to win not only the tree and its decorations, but all of the great prizes that surround it. And it's also a great family tradition to spend time wandering around, kind of wish list, if you will, dreaming about what would happen if we won one of those trees.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Laura Lee, for joining me today and for talking about all of these absolutely gorgeous trees. And you can buy tickets until 4 p.m. on December 14th, and you can enter to win any of these gorgeous trees and displays. Live in Spokane, I'm Caitlin Smock for NonStop Local.
All right, thank you, Caitlin. You got to have a strategy, too, because you have them inside the Davenport, you have them inside the mall. I got a strategy last year, just going to share it out there. We start with the mall. We start kind of looking like, what do we want? That's where we park. Then you go to the Davenport, you check that out, you start putting the tickets in there, then you save some when you go back to the mall to pick up your car, so then you check all the boxes.
I love it all.
Yeah.
Or you could just go multiple days, too.
That's true. All right. More to come here on Wake Up NonStop Local. Big signing day for Washington State.
How many commitments are coming to Pullman to play football for the Cougs? Coming up in your Sports Minute.
And I'm tracking a frosty start with areas of freezing fog if you're headed out soon, and the arrival of our next wintry system.